Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to the Bleed Lows podcast. This episode of the Bleed Lows podcast is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, events, and they're the first to market odds and lines. So you can find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. Look, BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make sure you make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts.
And stopping by the Carne Asada for a few minutes, current Los Angeles Dodgers / Sportsnet LA play-by-play guy for the Los Angeles Dodgers, Joe Davis. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Alonzo. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for stopping by. So, not to throw too much pressure on you right out the gate, but the first thing I want to ask you is, you are replacing Joe Buck, the voice of my youth on Fox, for all that stuff. You and I are actually pretty close in age, which is also insane. How does that feel?
You know what? So same thing for me. Part of the reason why it's such a cool promotion for me is because of what you said. Like, Joe's been the guy for all the big events through our lifetime that has been the voice calling those moments. And the guy that as I decided I wanted to do this for a living, he was calling all the biggest games I was watching, and I thought, that's a guy I would love to be a little bit like. And he's turned into a mentor for me as well, and a friend, and that's a big part. Same way, guys, as following Vin, that defines the Dodger chair. It's the same thing going into this Fox gig. A big part of why it's special is because of who I'm following. Well,
and obviously we just lost Vin a couple weeks ago, and I know everyone's dealing through that. But as you obviously when someone passes away, you kind of have a time to reflect, right? And you look back on stuff. You talked about it on the broadcast, but I wanted to ask you, for our audience that may have not caught that, what did Vin mean to you, and what does he still mean? Because that guy's still always going to be around, kind of like a Bob Shepard is with the Yankees, right? You hear that voice from time to time. So what does that kind of mean for you as you kind of look back on all that?
Yeah, greatest ever to do the job, and there's never going to be anybody like him. He will always be the greatest ever to do the job. He will always be the voice of the Dodgers, and to me, the voice of baseball. Vin, before Joe Buck, there was Vin doing the World Series and doing all the big national games, and not just the World Series, but NFL playoff games and the Masters, and you name it, there was Vin. And I think that he's the greatest storyteller the business has ever seen. I think you could argue he's as good of a storyteller as there is in any industry in our lifetimes. So, again, from a personal standpoint, it's that the chair that I sit in is defined by him, and it will always be the case. And I think bigger picture, it's just the legacy that he leaves as the greatest ever to do this job.
I think that's a great, concise way of putting it. The greatest storyteller probably ever. I mean, there's a lot of really good storytellers out there, but Vin had a story for just about everything, right? And it's wild. Just, like we were talking about it earlier, the story that you told about Evan Phillips's wife misplacing her sweater. I know you made a point to say that you didn't want to emulate a lot of the stuff that Vin did, but as you know, calling a baseball game, there's a lot of dead time. So the fact that, you're able to more or less kind of give that homage in a certain degree is the perfect, concise way.
Thank you. Yeah, and it wasn't that I didn't want to emulate Vin, because I do. He's the greatest ever to do the job, so of course I want to emulate him. It's a fine line between that and trying to be him. So I realized that the storytelling is a big part of what made him him, and that's the expectation Dodger fans have. That's the announcer they've had for the entire time the team's been in LA. And I go and I listen, I recognize, it's rich when you hear the stories. And when I listen back to myself, not that I'm any good at it, but I think just human condition is that we want to hear stories. So my ears perk up when I critique myself and I hear myself telling a story. So that's a long way of saying because Vin established that as the expectation, and from there, because I learned that it is a real thing, that the human condition is to want to hear stories about people, I've really worked hard to make it a continuation of what Vin did and a part of what we do still, and have done my best to become better at telling those stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we continue the historical component, because I know Alicia's is foaming at the mouth to ask that question. I wanted to ask you this because Juan, my counterpart Juan here, talks a lot about guys that are in his fight club, announcers, color guys, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You as a guy that obviously you're the guy with the Dodgers, or you do football, you do college football. Now you're going to do MLB on Fox. When you hear of people like on Twitter, whatever, as you know, it's despair of pain, Twitter. But the people speak, right? You hear, hey, Joe Buck is in my fight club. Hey, Bob Costas is in my fight club. Hey, so and so's in my fight club. Does that ever get to you in any way, or does it kind of make you, as you said, kind of go back, revisit some stuff and work on stuff?
I've done a lot better job, Alonzo, as my career's gone on, of not letting social media determine how I feel about a broadcast. And that works both ways. People are really nice to me on there. Really, like, I don't want to say that it's a mess on there. People are great. Dodger fans have been amazing. At the same time, though, say you get 20 tweets, 19 of them are nice, one of them's mean. There's two things. One of them is you're going to focus on the mean one. I think we all do that. But the 19 good ones, I shouldn't need those to know if I was good on a given night. I don't need those. I don't need that positive feedback any more than I need the negative feedback. I know when I'm good. I know when I stink. So I've done a much better job of not hanging out on there and not letting it define the way that I feel about games. And I think it has its place. I think it can be a good tool, but I just don't know that it's great for the soul always. And I think especially for play-by-play announcers, like on the short list of jobs where you shouldn't be spending a lot of time on social media, probably is play-by-play announcers. So I've cleansed a little bit getting off there for the most part.
No, hey, 100% right. And Alicia, go ahead, since I know you're foaming and chomping at the bit to ask the question.
What? No. Joe, thank you. That was wonderful advice, especially for maybe young and upcoming broadcasters, journalists. I was told that when I got into the business, it was some of the best advice. Don't take to heart the negative. Don't take it personally. Don't focus on it. But that also goes both ways. You said it yourself. You can't also focus on the positive, all of that. You can appreciate it, right? Kind words are kind, but you should not use social media as your measuring stick of your performance, right? So thank you for everyone listening out there currently in school or whatnot, pursuing it, because this is Joe Davis giving you that advice. And we are the Bleed Lows podcast. We are the only Latinos talking Dodgers baseball and LA and culture. Now, you spoke so eloquently. I also saw the way I viewed when you were speaking about Vin on Spectrum. It's just so important and so beautiful that we go through this together, losing Vin. Mm-hmm. But you also get to work in the same press box, the same stadium with Jaime Jarrin, who is a friend of the Carne Asada. He's been on our show. He's a wonderful man, such a gentleman. Any stories, any tidbits, any kind of insight, what it's like to, I mean, you're there with Fernando and Jaime Jarrin. Good Lord.
I know. Nah, he is, and you guys know, knowing Jaime, as special as he is as an announcer and as much as he's meant to Los Angeles and to the Dodgers, he exceeds all those things, just how he is as a person. And one of my highlights each day at the park is when I get to bump into Jaime and say hello. And he comes into our booth pretty much every night and just says hi to everybody. And I cherish those moments. And right from the start of my time with the Dodgers, which is now, this is my 7th year, but my first year right away, he took me under his wing and made sure that I was comfortable and made me feel like family immediately. So yeah, he's a very special person to me.
Yeah, and it's his last year broadcasting with you all. So even more special, right, when he comes in and visits. And so here on the podcast, we are also big proponents of Fernando getting his flowers while he's still with us, right? And I'm going to let Juan talk about that about the goal. We have a petition going. Juan, what is our goal regarding Fernando?
Our goal is to have his number retired. And look, Joe, I don't want to put you in an unfair seat because I know you have nothing to do with this, all right? Everyone we've talked to, Dale Murphy was surprised to hear that Fernando's jersey wasn't retired. Mm-hmm. They don't give out the number. You know, Jaime Jarrin told us he has had conversations with the Dodgers about this. He wants it done before he retires, right? He wants to see it live. Unfortunately, we lost Mike Brito this year. I think it would have meant so much for the scout who discovered Valenzuela to see live Valenzuela's jersey getting retired. So I guess we just want to... we don't want to put you on the spot. We just want to hear your thoughts on Valenzuela's jersey getting retired.
Yeah, I mean, and I know you guys know the reasoning behind it is that the rule of thumb for the team is you don't do it unless they're in the Hall of Fame. And that's a whole nother discussion, right? Both the team's perspective and Fernando's place in Cooperstown. I love that they don't give the number out. I think so. I grew up a Cubs fan. Ron Sano was the Cubs radio announcer, was the color guy for my childhood. And Ronnie is in the Hall of Fame now, but it happened after he passed away. And that always broke my heart knowing that, you know, he's got his rightful spot, but he didn't get to appreciate that. So I can totally relate with you where you guys are coming from. If they are ever going to make an exception to it, he would be the guy to do it for. And I know Jim Gilliam, too, is an exception for a different reason. But, I mean, nobody has meant more to the organization and the way the organization has transformed in its time in Los Angeles than that man.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to segue from one Cy Young Award winner to another one. You know, you work with Hershiser, but not just Hershiser. You have different partners. And I want to give you your flowers because I don't know if our listeners realize how hard it is to work with rotating partners. Now, I know as the season has gone on, you've been able to build chemistry. But right from the beginning, and all these guys have different styles. Like Don Trell has a different style. Jessica has a different style. Eric Karros has a different style. We've had all those people on the show, and they all give you credit for making it work, Joe. How is it that when you're broadcasting with these people, the give and take, most importantly, knowing when to shut up, letting the other person come in, and not making it seem awkward?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for passing that along. I think it's a priority. It might be at the top of the list. What is your job as a play-by-play announcer? It's to make the person next to you shine on television specifically because you can see what's happening. So there's not as much requirement of the play-by-play person to describe everything that's happening, right? And let's face it, nobody gives a you-know-what about what I have to say. They want to hear what Eric Karros has to say. They want to hear what Omar Garcia-Parra has to say. These are the people care about. So I try to nail the basics, tell some stories, get the facts out, entertain. But I understand that these are the people and the former players that fans want to hear from. So I just do my very best to put them in a spot where they're comfortable and put them in the best position to succeed. And like you touched on, Juan, everybody's different. And so what that requires is completely different for each of them. And it's part of the gig, especially this year, and one that I embrace and do my very best to make the most of.
Before I hand it over to Alonzo to start wrapping up, I did want to, I don't know if I misheard this, but I thought I heard Hershiser say that before you guys started working together, you guys were watching old tape of Vin Scully. Is that true?
We never did together. There's never like a formal sit down, but I can tell you that as recently as this would have been January, I was in Michigan doing college basketball, and the game got canceled because of COVID outbreak on one of the teams. So I had just a full day in the airport, and I spent the day watching old Vin broadcasts, a random regular season game in the mid-'90s, a couple really random games, a postseason game that I'd never watched, and just taking notes. And you do that much less formally anytime you listen to Vin, I think, and it was a master class anytime I'd turn him on. I used to listen to him all the time when I was in the minors doing Montgomery Biscuit games. We would, in the central time zone, I'd call the game, and then game would end. I'd be doing game notes, and the website and all the stuff, the extra stuff you do as a minor league announcer. But while I was doing the extra stuff after the game, I would listen to Vin because it would be right around when the West Coast games were starting and learn each time. And then 2016, where I'm doing just the road games, he's doing just the home games. I had to keep up with the team closely. So I was watching all those home games and not just keeping up with the team, but learning from Vin. So, yeah, there's definite truth to that. Probably a little more, never as formal as it was sitting down taking notes the way I did this winter, but definitely truth to what Oral said.
So there was an active choice by you guys to continue the style, that storytelling style, because as Alonso mentioned, the Evan Phillips thing blew up all over social media. I don't know if you saw this, but everyone wanted to know what happened with the sweater.
But yeah, hey, and actually, somebody sent me a response from her. You guys probably saw it.
Yeah.
They never did find the sweater. Right. The way he's pitching, though, that's not going to matter. They can go buy a whole box of sweaters soon.
See, but that's the power of your broadcast, Joe, because everybody's like, what happened to the sweater? Right. And that's kind of like the stuff that would happen. It's unfair to compare you to Vin, but I just want you to know you are making your own mark. Everybody loves the calls that you're making. And now it's a generation of Dodger fans that are growing up as Joe Davis is my announcer.
Yeah.
So, yeah, before I hand it over to Alonso, because you said you were a Cubs fan, I need to hear your Harry Carey impression, or do you not have one?
Yeah. You know what? I will point you to the Harry Carey hologram we had during the Fox Field of Dreams game during the 7th inning last Thursday. I've heard very strong opinions both ways on that. What I can tell you is a lot of time and thought went into that and the pregame. I don't know if you guys saw the tease before the Field of Dreams game where it looked like actually Bob Gibson pitching on the Field of Dreams field. It looked like Hank Aaron in the on deck circle. So the production people at Fox put in so many hours to work with a third-party company to make those things come to life. That's complete aside from what you asked. I'm just deflecting so I don't have to do a Harry Carey.
That's okay. For those of us that grew up with the superstation, WGN, we all know you're a Cub fan and a Bud man. So there you go. Go ahead,
also,
Alonso.
Masterclass by Joe Davis to completely circumvent that. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
I just wanted him to say, "Hey, look at the guy with the sombrero. I'll bring up Rob Mondesi."
Yeah, we don't need me to do it. We got you, Wallace.
So before we set former Montgomery Biscuits play-by-play guy Joe Davis on his way, because I know you got a bus to catch, I have to ask a very important question. You live in Pasadena. You obviously work at the Ravine. Where do you get we're all about tacos. We're all about culture. We're all about all things Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
Where do you get your tacos, and what is your favorite taco?
See this, I'm gonna fail and get kicked off the podcast here. I don't eat a ton of tacos just because I'm like a low carb guy typically. So I do big open face things. We cook a lot at home. One thing we do at home is it's not really a traditional taco, I guess, but we'll marinate chicken and grill the chicken over charcoal always. And then oftentimes pair it with tri-tip, which I'll slice thinly, and have a beef and the chicken options. We do a lot of the cooking at home. I need to take advantage of the taco culture and the food truck culture in LA more because I know that it is one of a kind and it is better than it is anywhere else. So I need some guidance from you guys.
And you can do the open face situation without eating a tortilla. So it's no one will take offense to it. Because you could still, go in and do the open face thing. Go to Guisados, which is right down the hill there. They have fire tacos, Teddy's red tacos. A little carby, but fire.
Okay.
Those are two good options to start with.
And if you want an adventure and try carnitas, there's Al Momo, which is just featured on Netflix. So you can watch and learn about where everybody is going to get their tacos. You can also get some at Dodger Stadium. You're set.
Okay. I got no excuses, guys.
No, Joe's a professional because he avoided the controversial question of which tortilla he prefers because he's a no-carb guy. We never got his answer on corn or flour. So.
But again,
probably flour. Is that a wrong answer?
Yes, that is a wrong. You picked the wrong answer, Joe, and I'll tell you why. The flour tortilla is the oppressor's tortilla. So Look, this has caused the civil war in the Evan Phillips household because his wife is a corn person and Evan is a flour person. Walker Bueller said flour, and it's no
Not even
competition.
close.
It's not even close.
Softer? No.
They are softer.
They're good, but I mean the reason why they're the oppressor's tortilla is because the Spaniards came and introduced that ingredient before the indigenous people just used the land, the harina.
Is
So that's your history lesson right there on
I like
tortillas,
both,
Joe.
though. Don't let anybody tell you what to like. You're obviously very healthy, but I eat both. Everyone gets sugar.
This is why Joe says this is why I don't eat carbs. I can avoid conversations like
And
this.
for the record, I do eat carbs. I just didn't pick
Low.
spots to go lower. Yeah,
I mean, listen. At the end of the day, you're the fittest person here, aside from Alyssa.
Yes,
So
exactly.
it works fine. It works fine.
Right, fair.
Well,
I love
Joe,
it, Joe.
thank you so much for stopping by. We know you got to catch a bus because you got to call a game or something. It's weird.
Something like that.
Yeah. But if you're not following him, go follow him on Twitter at Joe Davis. Super easy to find. He's one of the best in not only the Dodgers world, but in the game as a whole. He's one of the good ones too. Joe Davis, thank you for stopping by.
Of course, guys. Great to visit with you.
Yeah, let's do it again soon.
Okay, great.
And big thank you once again to Joe Davis for joining us on the show. I know he was up against it, so we appreciate the time that he did give us. Alonso had to step away; he's on assignment. So Alicia and I and Babyface, we're gonna bring it home for the rest of the show here. Alicia, what was your impression there of Mr. Joe Davis?
Super cool and super professional. Is he not like the consummate, like, I mean, even when he's just chatting it up, his voice stays level. He's telling a story. Like, he's really prepared and professional. I felt like I needed to step my game up. Like,
No, you're absolutely right. Like, to me, I'm like, is this casual for you, bro?
Yeah.
I mean, because you're coming off pretty formal. And the thing that the guy's 34 years old.
I know.
He's 34 years old. He gets to be the voice of the Dodgers, and who knows for how long. I mean, let me ask you guys this. Do you guys see him? Obviously, 60 years is not conceivable, but do you see him maybe doing 50? Like, could you see him staying with the Dodgers? Because I'm sure he's making a lot of money being the main guy now on the national scene for Fox. Plus, he does football. How much longer do you guys think Joe Davis is going to stay with the Dodgers?
The key word that you just said is football.
Right?
Whether you like it or not, it dominates this country.
Yes.
There are less games, right? Less traveling. He's got a young family. I'm thinking big picture, and he's only 34.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he doesn't have to stay. I'm trying to think. Did we talk about this contract? Does he have?
No,
we
didn't.
don't know, right? We're speculating. So,
Yeah.
I don't see him staying much longer. Football's just growing. Baseball's always been catching up to the other major sports. So I can totally see him leaving, and I wouldn't blame him. I mean, do I want him to go? No, but the answer is I could totally see him leaving. I don't know if it's now because the Dodgers are in such a great position to dominate, not just this year with the World Series, but for many seasons to come. At least, what do we say, Babyface? Should we go like around 4 or 5 years?
I mean, I'd love for him to stick around. I mean, and do like
Me too.
30 years, 30 years with the team. But I honestly don't think that those are the days that we're in anymore. That guys, somebody's not going to stay with the team 40 years, 50 years as a broadcaster. I mean, that I think was, Vin and Jaime and the Bob Euchers, and it's a dying breed. I mean, you're not going to get guys that are going to want to stick around in the team, like I said, that long. So, if Joe's, he said he's been with the team now in the 7th season. So if he's in,
Wow, 7, man, 7 just flies, man.
yeah. So if he's there 7, and he does another 3, 4, like Alicia was saying, that's over 10 seasons with Joe Davis. I mean, I think that sounds about right. I mean, yeah, I mean, what he's going to be doing, doing the Fox stuff, and He's still going to do the All-Star game and the World Series. So he's busy. I mean, he's just busy nonstop. I mean, that he gave us this time, 20 minutes, it's like thank you for giving us,
I know, super
putting
cool.
that aside for us, and we've been trying to do this for a while now, and he said, yeah, okay, I'll give you, 20
Isn't
minutes.
that
We can do it.
cool? That's so cool.
So,
Joe Davis, friend of the carne asada. Like, I love that.
so yeah, I mean, I want to have him as long as because, we discussed this on the show yesterday. I mean, there's no one that can replace Vin, but we've been so lucky to get Joe Davis because like
Yes.
Joe Davis, maybe when he first started, nobody heard of who Joe Davis was, but now everybody knows who Joe Davis is. I mean, he's just come in. I mean, he's fit in perfectly after Vin. He has that nod to Vin with the stories. He's the perfect, not a replacement, but just the perfect next announcer for the Dodgers.
And I have to say, I mean, Alicia, I think you're absolutely right in the sense, who doesn't want to work less and make more money?
Yes.
Because I'm sure Fox and whoever else he's hired are going to pay him more than Spectrum's paying him. Because is he an employee of the Dodgers or an employee of Spectrum?
I think he's Spectrum.
So he's at Spectrum.
I think they're all Spectrum, yeah.
And then after a while, I'm sure the travel just gets annoying. And it's exactly what you said, Alicia. I mean, he's got young kids. It's going to get to a point where, I don't want to be away from my kids for 2 weeks.
If they start playing like T-ball and doing the
Exactly.
organized sports, are you going to want to be traveling with a team or even just being at the stadium? There are so many games in baseball, right? So we're grateful. I'm very grateful to our announcers. And we're so spoiled, again, as Dodger fans, to have someone like Joe. But yeah, as the kids get older and they start playing sports or, dance recitals and stuff, I mean, wouldn't you? He seems like a very devoted family man, too.
Yeah,
So
and
I was trying to factor all of that in.
yeah, I don't blame him. I think we should appreciate it while it lasts.
Yes.
But you're absolutely right, Babyface, in the sense that it was a rather smooth transition from Vin to Joe Davis. And I say this because I compare it to Paul Sunderland. Do you guys remember Paul Sunderland? If you guys want to know what a trivia question is, he's the guy who replaced Chick Hearn. Okay?
Oh.
And I didn't think Paul Sunderland did a bad job. I thought Paul Sunderland was great. But he's following Chick Hearn. And Paul Sunderland only got I think he got 1 or maybe 2 years max. And then they brought in Joel Myers, which I was like, get this guy out of here. I mean, hey, I have to listen to Joel Myers. And I was just like, and then after the Lakers let him go, he started doing UCLA games. And I'm like, I can't get away from this guy. But it's like, for the Dodgers, I mean, I know you say it all the time, Alicia. We should probably just make it a T-shirt by now. How spoiled Dodger fans are. But I mean, it's like we went from Vin to Joe Davis, and we hinted at it. I find it really cool that he's kind of kept that same style where we hear stories. I think a lot of us are used to, when you watch a Dodger game, hearing stories. Have you ever listened to a broadcast of another team? I mean, I think it's brutal. Like some of these guys, they're like trying out comedy routines, and I'm just like, hey, man, just call the game. So the fact that Joe Davis was able to continue that and he didn't fight it, I think that the smartest thing on his part was he knew, whether they were fair or not, that he was going to get comparisons to Vin. And what he did was I think he honored Vin's legacy by doing it. And I mean, he's done a wonderful job. I want to segue into, the Dodgers have done something different this year. And that is they're rotating color analysts with Joe. So on the road, we've had Jessica Mendoza, we've had Eric Karros, we've had Dontrell Willis, and we've had Nomar. And the home games are with Oral Hershiser. Of those rotating, first of all, let me ask you guys, what do you think of the rotating color analysts?
Who wants to go first?
Yeah, that's for both of you. I mean, any of you can jump in. We're doing a talk show here, guys, so the idea is for you guys to talk.
I will say that I like it. I like variety. Well, the irony is, in most other things, I'm a traditionalist. like that's why I was very upset for those years that my father was not allowed to watch Vin in his final years on television because of the deal, right? The TV
Right.
deal. Like it burned me. I was pissed at the Dodgers. But I've moved forward. I've let it go, right? I actually I didn't think I would enjoy it. I will say, speaking of my father, he does not enjoy it. He doesn't like the road. He wants consistency. I guess I think a lot of people are resistant to change. This is new, having this rotation, and so people. I gave it a try. I just was open to it, and I've not been disappointed. There are some comments by a few of the rotation, and I won't say whom because I like them all, but sometimes I've been caught off guard, like, wait, what? But again, it's just different. It doesn't mean it's worse. So my opinion is if it's working and they're not losing ratings or getting hate mail or anything. Plus, you know me, I'm always about representation. We've got Noma, we got Jessica. Like those are the two things that I want to see more in Major League Baseball, in front of the cameras, on the mics, are the fans that are at your games. And that is women of color, and Nomar's a local guy, and he's Chicano. So I'm happy.
What do you think, Babyface?
Yeah, and all those bring something different to the table. You know, I mean, Dontrell, former player, right? I mean, hilarious. He's just hilarious, right?
Fun, yeah.
He's just like this funny sidekick, right? You know, Jessica, she comes from softball, but she's down with like the analytics and the numbers. So she's like that stat nerd, right? That stat geek.
Yeah.
You know, and Nomar, former player as well, Eric Karros, and they have their different perspective of when they played and just how they view things. So it's like you get all these different perspectives, and I think it's cool. And like we said, they all mesh with Joe Davis. You know, it's not like none of those guys clash with him. They all mesh, and you couldn't even tell that, like, oh yeah, these guys don't work on a regular basis with Joe Davis. It's like they just fit right in.
You know, I will say this. I think it's gotten to the point where it works so well. I honestly don't notice it. It's
Right.
never been one of those things where I turn on the Dodger game and I'm like, ah, damn, dude, Karros is doing the game, or oh, Jessica's doing. Like, no, to me, I get it that it's new, and usually a lot of people don't like anything new. Don't change anything up on it. But for me, it's really seemed like they've been doing this for a long time. I don't know if either one of you remember this, but remember back in the day where Vin would do 3 innings, and then they would bring in either Don Drysdale or Ross Porter would do the middle 3 innings, and then Vin would come back and do 7 through 9.
Yeah.
I'm glad I never had a problem with that, because that's what I was used to. Like, it was normal to me. I'm glad the Dodgers aren't doing that.
Right.
Because I always felt like, I liked Ross Porter. I thought Ross Porter was a good, broadcaster. Is he going to be Vin Scully? No, but I didn't have a problem listening to Ross Porter. Would you like to try some Dodger trivia?
Right.
I mean, he had that drawl that he had. So the fact that these guys get to do a full game, and you guys are right in the sense that they all have different personalities. And I have to commend the Spectrum people on that, because they obviously did a very good job in the sense of who they picked. Karros has that Dodger connection. After talking to Jessica, I was not aware that she had a Dodger connection, right? You feel, when you hear her, you can feel her passion, her love of the game. And
Yeah.
she's right. She's referred to herself as a nerd. So to her, she does give off that energy as she's a little kid, and they let her in on the stadium, and she gets to do all that stuff. And I know when we talked to her, Alicia, you were very like, now girls are going to be able to see Jessica on TV, and it's perfectly normal.
Yep.
That she does this, and this is now an option for those little girls. Like, hey, I want to go into broadcasting.
Yeah.
Dontrell is like, you are at a party watching a game. I mean,
Yeah.
he has a lot of flavor. He is just like about having a good time. I love that he's always holding a baseball in his hand. That to me is like, he's a total baseball lifer. Nomar, another connection to the Dodgers, and he's just very professional. And we got to talk about Hershiser. We left Hershiser off, right?
Love Hershiser.
I think everyone. I don't know. Do you guys think they would have preferred that Hershiser do all the games, or do you think people are fine with, hey, let's hear some new voices? We get to hear Hershiser at home. Alicia?
Yeah.
Do I think that they prefer he do all the games? Is that the question?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's back to people don't like change. And Oral is so beloved. And he's such he's that good guy, right? Like, he even when you think he might be saying something negative, it's not. Like, it's his way of, like, being surprised.
It's how he delivers it. It's how you deliver it.
He's just such a, good dude, right? Like, he's Oral Hershiser, but with the legacy of a champion, right? His records and all of that stuff. So yes, I do think that there are probably people. I mean, we saw the Twitterverse go off on some of the announcers, the broadcasters, as they were being rotated. It was hateful at times.
Yeah.
And we talked to some of them about that, and they acknowledged it, but they also know that there's nothing they could do about it. It's Twitter, right? And you just keep doing your job. And I think they've won people over by being consistently good, consistently bringing their own flavor. Like Babyface said, they all bring something to the table. Oral is, he missed a lot of the end of last season, right? Wasn't it? Or was it the playoffs? He was absent. He was gone. Am I not?
I don't remember that, but I do find it interesting that he has now decided to only do home games. We talked about it with Joe Davis, like how much longer is Joe Davis going to do this? Now it makes me wonder how much longer is Hershiser going to do this? I'm because Hershiser, I think he lives outside of California. I don't think he lives in California. What were you going to say, Alicia?
So I thought we talked about this, but please forgive me. And for our loyal listeners and followers, if you've heard me talk about this before, but my brain, I'm still hungry. The theory is...
we're going to have a drop. We're going to have a drop now. Is Alicia hungry?
Right?
When can you tell on the show when Alicia was getting hungry?
She's still hungry from the live.
Yeah.
Back on Thursday.
Yeah, back on Thursday. You're right. Somebody give that girl a sandwich.
Give me a cookie. Okay, so I thought that we talked about how COVID has changed everything, including the need for more broadcasters. And so I'm not saying that Oral has or has not been vaxxed. I don't want to set the Goonies and the Loonies crazy. This is not a show about discussing vaccination, okay? But for the record, I believe in science. Anyway, I think that the Dodgers and Spectrum were forced to hire more people. They just did a really good job about it. Is that, am I?
No, that makes sense. You're right.
Anti-political.
No, because you're right. If someone got the COVID and they were going to be out for 10 days, and it happened earlier this season when Darren Sutton, Don Sutton's son, had to come and call a couple of games for a weekend because there was a breakout. So I never thought about that, Alicia, but you might be right.
I'm pretty sure the rumor was one or a couple of them were not getting vaccinated. And so you go to different states, or you can't be around, like protocol, right?
Yeah.
Like New York, or again, I didn't want to get into the politics of it, but the point is the need was there. I don't think that Spectrum and the Dodgers were like, hey, why don't we change things up? I really think that it was the light bulb went on because of the need, but they handled it very well. Instead of just hiring one other person, they were like, screw it. Let's just bring on like the best people we can get, and they're going to rotate. And some were already in-house, like Nomar, but I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident in what I think there were people that did not get vaccinated, or they didn't want an outbreak and be stuck with nobody,
So now you made me think of something that I'm not. So do you think this was just an experiment for 1 year, Do you think we're going to see this next year where we're going to have rotating broadcasters, or do you think maybe they pick somebody based on the reaction? Because you're right. I feel Dontrell from the beginning, I saw a lot of love for him on Twitter. And for me, it was obvious that Dontrell was the favorite. What you were talking about, when I saw it, and it made me laugh, Jessica was getting a lot of hate towards the beginning of the season. And then all of a sudden it transformed, and the hate turned into hate for Alex Rodriguez, where people were just sitting there going, oh, Jessica was good all along. It was A-Rod. A-Rod was the one that made Jessica look bad. So it's just one of those. I thought that was funny because it was just one of those things where it's like, no, it's okay to admit that Jessica Mendoza is good at what she does, man. And that you were just like wrong, and you just had this unreasonable, illogical dislike towards her.
Maybe the Dodgers are doing the Jeopardy thing, where they have all these, trying them out, and then they'll pick like one or two for going forward.
Well, no, and that's why I was asking you guys. I wonder if they use this season to see, hey, you know what? Dontrell got a really good reaction. What if we make Dontrell the permanent guy? But here's the other thing. Dontrell works for Fox. Dontrell does coverage on the weekends, right? So I'm sure Dontrell's going to negotiate that in his contract, just like Joe Davis has it in his contract. Hey, on the weekends, I go do national coverage. So you're not going to have him. So maybe you do have to hire, again, multiple people to cover it. I mean, we see it with Tim Neverett. Tim Neverett spells Joe Davis whenever Joe Davis. I mean, the Dodgers have broadcasters now. Jose Mota is a guy that they can also use. I mean, Jose Mota, he can do both English and Spanish.
I know.
I mean, they brought Jose Mota to spell Jaime Jarrin, and I'm sure Jose Mota's role is going to change next year, and so I find it really interesting, but I also think of the ones that they've picked, I don't have an issue with any of them. I think they're all great. Go ahead, Alicia.
Do you think that? So I was a little nervous when I heard about Karos being hired, and I now I just think he's so cool. He's so friendly. He's so down to earth. He's very approachable. But this is before we interviewed him and met him, and we've been at events at Dodger Stadium with him. I had the impression that he was kind of gruff, like a little like abrasive. Yeah. And that's, again, I didn't know him. That was my impression. That's my bad for judging a book by its cover. And he turns out to be, he just knows his stuff, and he's got the Dodger connection. So I enjoy Eric, but I just remember thinking, I'm admitting that I was like, oh, like it's going to be like rough, kind of like he'd bag on the guys or something, like I didn't know what to expect.
Well, no, I know. I think you're right. Of the rotating, I feel he's probably the most critical. But I do feel that he comes from a point where he's not like trying to embarrass anyone. He is literally trying to explain it. But I do see those people on Twitter who will be like, oh my, like they know more baseball than Eric Karros, right? Exactly. So they don't want Eric Karros to explain baseball to them, man. And it's just like, hey, dude, I mean, Eric Karros isn't just playing to you. He's playing to a larger audience. There are people, believe it or not, that watch Dodger games that aren't super fans, that don't know, like, about whip or any of those ridiculous numbers. And so to them, they do learn stuff listening to the broadcast. What do you think, Babyface?
Yeah, I mean, Karros, he's probably, like you said, he's a little bit more kind of like hard-nosed baseball. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's how he played the game, that's how he explains it, and it's baseball, right? So, out of those guys, I mean, like Nomar, too, like, I think Nomar, we'd see him more in the pregame stuff. So I think he might just go back to that stuff, kind of, if, maybe he won't do as many games, he just goes back to his pregame stuff. So when I look at the cast, right, Dontrell does the Fox stuff, so, like, can he really do, like, a full year of traveling and being on the road and doing all that stuff? And Jessica, too, she has ESPN stuff, too, so it's like, it probably makes sense to do the rotation, right? If they want to keep those guys do the rotation because I don't think there's any of those that could actually work, a full season, traveling with the team because they all have other stuff going on unless they're going to leave what they're currently doing.
Yeah, so I mean it's funny because we have had now Eric Karros on the show. We've had Dontrell, we've had Jessica, we've had Joe Davis. We're missing a couple of them. We're still working on it. We still have some time for the rest of the season to try to get everyone from the Dodgers broadcast booth. Exactly. Hershiser. I think Hershiser's the white whale that we're chasing after. And you mentioned Noma. But, I mean, it's...
Wait a second.
Uh-oh.
Valenzuela. That's got to be our...
Well, you know what? It's funny that you mentioned that because we've mainly been focusing on TV. But we had Jose Mota on. Maybe we should have more of the radio guys on. Well, I mean, last season we had Tim Neverett on. But maybe we should think about maybe Rick Monday or Charlie Steiner or, Valenzuela because Valenzuela does, the Spanish broadcast. I mean, there's a lot of times, look, I'll admit it, if I'm not watching the game, if I'm on the road, I listen to the Spanish broadcast on radio, because I get to listen to Jarrin. And then in between innings, I get, because they do it the old way. Jarrin does the first 3 innings, then Mota comes in with Pepe Iniguez, and then and Valenzuela, depending on what the rotation is, and then Jarrin comes to do the last 3 innings. So it's interesting. We should. That was one question I didn't get to ask Joe Davis, especially now that everything is more modern. I don't know if he's ever done radio. John Ireland, I know, Alicia, you and I, we listen to a lot of local sports talk radio. Uh-huh. John Ireland does radio for the Lakers. Mm-hmm. And, he's very, very descriptive on his calls. And there are a lot of times where I feel like John Ireland is like dumbing it down for people. But it's like, I think his approach is not everyone is a basketball fan. If you're driving in your car, you want to, you're curious about the Lakers, you're explaining it. So being able to now where Joe Davis is just like, I shut up and I just let the audience, just watch what they're watching, right? There's a difference there. I would have liked to have gotten his feedback on that.
You know what I wanted to ask, and I know we got to wrap up here, but I was recently at an LAFC game. And to all of our viewers and followers, if you've not been to an LAFC game, it is epic. I highly recommend it, even if you think you don't like soccer. Anyway. Football,
Alicia. I will not allow you to do that.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry. Football. Anyway, they had Will Ferrell and John McEnroe as the sideline, as the play-by-play guys.
Oh, you went to that game?
Yes. And I just thought, how cool is that? Like, you have Will Ferrell and John McEnroe calling, an LAFC game. So I was thinking, like, who would we like to see celebrity-wise calling a Dodger game, right? Because if I'm not watching, I'm listening. So
I'm like, what? That's a really good question. Like, do you pick a celebrity that you know is a fan and that actually follows the team? Like, I'm thinking Bryan Cranston. I've heard Bryan Cranston talk about the Dodgers, and he knows what he's talking about. He's not a casual fan. Rob Lowe or Palinka, depending on who you think he really is,
because we've not seen him in the same.
Yeah, we haven't seen them together in the same room. So, but
what about like Mary Hart, right? Like,
I'm off the Mary Hart train. I know that people love Mary Hart and the way she does the Kimbrel thing. I won't disclose that. It's improper for me to speak badly, but I'll just say I'm not a fan of Mary Hart.
How about our friend Guillermo?
I'd be concerned that Guillermo would be drunk by the time the first inning. I think we're still waiting for him to come back to finich the interview, right, Babyface?
Yeah, I forgot to check if we had him today. Yeah.
That's a really good question. For the Dodgers, I don't.
Arsenio Hall and George Lopez used to go to a lot of games.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. The more I think about it, but it's not for the Dodgers. You know who what I'd love to hear call a game is Jack Nicholson calling a Lakers game.
Oh my gosh! Imagine that's a great call.
that to me, I was just thinking because you just clearly associate Jack Nicholson with the Lakers,
100.
right? But I don't know if there is a celebrity like that for the Dodgers. So I probably would have to go Bryan Cranston because I've heard Bryan Cranston talk about the Dodgers and he knows his stuff. So I think Bryan Cranston would be a guy I would listen to. Do you guys have anybody?
We got to get him a comedy sidekick though, or like a color guy, like a Don Trell, because Brian, I've not heard him speak of the Dodgers. He seems pretty serious to me. Is he not serious? Like
I think he's friendly with Mason, so he'll go on Mason in Ireland every once in a while, and he does have a very good give and take with Mason in Ireland. But yeah, you're right. I mean, the days of
celebrity. So this is the chance to like shake it up, right? Like not have a traditional. So Brian would be a great like lead guy, right? He knows baseball. He seems pretty level-headed. So we need like a Guillermo or George Lopez or an Arsenio or somebody that's going to be fun. Maybe comment on like what someone's wearing, like Bueller's pants too tight, stuff like that. Like have some fun, you know?
Do you have anybody, Babyface?
I think I'd like to see like George Lopez. Like I think he'd be good, like for Bryan Cranston. You know, I think he'd be his color guy. I think that'd be pretty interesting.
That would be. Are there any other Dodger celebrity super fans that we're not thinking of?
Yeah, I'm trying to think who do we see at the games?
You know who I don't see anymore? Alyssa Milano.
Oh, she was adorable. I don't see her anymore either.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people that we'd see before, we don't see that often.
Jason Bateman.
Yes, that's another one. You're right. But here's my problem.
He's witty and he's
the guy from the '70s show.
Ashton Kutcher.
Kutcher, yeah. He
but here's my thing with Jason Bateman, Alicia. Have you ever seen Dodgeball?
Yeah.
He plays a color commentator on Dodgeball. So I would just have that image just buried in my face when I'm watching the Dodger games of Jason Bateman, being that
Will
character.
Ferrell, right? Will Ferrell, Anchorman. You got to get him to come call Dodger.
Yeah, Will Ferrell. Actually, I think Will Ferrell will probably do it because he does a good Harry Carey impression. I don't know if you've ever seen his Harry Carey impression.
I love Will Ferrell. He's one of my favorite interviews.
Will Ferrell would probably be a... Cranston and Ferrell, I think, would probably play really well off of each other. They could be the Joe Davis and Oral Hershiser of celebrity broadcasting.
I'll send that email off.
Let's go. Let's get Will Ferrell on the show and be like, we want to audition you to be a celebrity broadcaster. All right, guys, we're going to wrap things up here. Is there anything else that you guys want to add about Joe Davis or any of the broadcasters that we discussed today?
No, just grateful. We've got some of the best.
You know, when we were talking about longevity, though, like Hershiser, I think he's somebody that we can see with the team down the road, like, 10, till Hershiser's like 70, 80 years old. He's one that I could see doing that.
While we were talking about it, I just looked it up. Hershiser's 63. So this is the reason why I kept telling you, the fact that now... And this is another reason why I feel like these guys aren't going to do it. Like traveling, every time I talk to these guys, they bitch and moan about the traveling. Like the traveling just sucks. And I'm sure that's what Hershiser doesn't want to do that anymore, right? So it just does make me wonder how much longer Hershiser is going to do it. But the good thing is we have a lot of Dodger people that may get into broadcasting. I mean, you've seen Adrian Gonzalez is doing the post-game show. We see him on Spectrum. Would he ever be interested? There's nothing. Go ahead, Alicia.
Chase Utley.
there we go. And the president of the Chase Utley fan club has finally showed up.
Sorry,
you know what though? I just saw something today.
For those of you playing at home, whenever Alicia mentions Chase Utley, take a drink, take a shot. All right.
I might have to kill that dream though today because I thought I saw something that said he's moving to England. Today.
Chase Utley's moving to England?
Yeah.
Are you breaking that news?
No,
I could get used to the cold, to the dampness.
Let me see if I can find it.
They have terrible food there.
There we go.
I can't eat fish and chips every day.
There you go. It's over. So before we wrap up, Babyface, let me know if you can confirm, and we'll break that news on our Joe Davis episode about Chase Utley moving to London and breaking Alicia's heart.
You know, when we had friend of the carne asada, Ned Coletti on, Ned was in London a lot, right?
Yeah.
Is this Ned's fault? Is he taking Chase Utley from us?
And you know what was funny was Ned told us that he could find Italian food in London.
I know.
So yeah, I found it. So according to the Philadelphia Inquirer,
And that's the major newspaper
it
in
says-
Philadelphia.
it says Chase Utley has moved to England to spread the gospel of baseball, and he's already converted. He's already converted one Brit.
Okay, so that means he's moving there for a job.
Right.
Someone is hired him to publicize baseball in London. So I don't know how long Chase Utley is going to be in London. He's there for a job. So
Well, nobody asked me if he could go to London. Jeez.
So there you have it. That is this week's episode. Once again, if you have not subscribed to the podcast, please subscribe. We have our YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And follow us on Twitter. We have a lot of new stuff there that we might be able to break, letting you guys know when we're doing our live episodes and stuff like that. Because you never know who's going to stop by the carne asada. So for this week's episode of the Bleed Los podcast, which is brought to you by Bet Online, where the game starts, for the Princesa of Picolandia, Babyface, and Alonso, who is out on assignment, I'm Juan. Thank you for listening to the Bleed Los podcast. We're out.